Welcome, everyone, to this meeting of the Board of Education. This meeting is being televised live on AACPS-TV and streamed on AACPS's YouTube channel. General information and protocols for the meeting are posted on the sign by the doorway as you enter the room, so please make sure you read those if you have not already done so. At this time, we'll have our invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance. Stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. And now for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have the approval of our minutes, item 2.03. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Consensus? We have consensus. And now we're going to have the established agenda order. Ms. Frank,
I move that the board hear item 4.01 Anne Arundel County fiscal year 2025 revenue outlook before item 2.05.
Second.
any discussion? Consensus? Okay.
And then
And now we need a motion for establishing an agenda order.
I move to adopt the amended agenda.
Second.
Discussion? Consensus? Okay. And so we're going to move on at this point in time. Item 4.01. That's Anne Arundel County fiscal year 2025 revenue outlook. Mr. Trumbauer, Happy New Year.
Good afternoon and thank you. Happy New Year to you, Mr. Chair and the board. It's my pleasure to be here. It's becoming our annual tradition, isn't it? Right after New Year's. So sometimes I bring good news, sometimes I bring not so good news. So I'll leave you to judge for yourself what I bring today. But before I get started, I just want to provide the usual caveats. So this is very early in our process. What I'm going to discuss today is the outcomes of our last budget that we passed, which is our current fiscal year 24, and then a little bit about our fiscal outlook for FY25, fiscal year 25, because I think that's useful for you all to understand as you deliberate on the Board of Education budget, which ultimately has to nest into our county budget. And I've got our good friend, Mr. Mosier, here to advance the slides for me. So let's go. All right, so what we're looking at here is our FY23 revenue. So we're just about to close the books on 23. If we haven't already, that is the charge of our finance department, not the budget office, but I know that they do an excellent job. There's a couple things I want to point out, and you'll notice I've highlighted a few things. The first, if we move down the page, is income tax. That number, 789.7, is a large number. It's uncharacteristically increased from the previous years. And it's exciting to see that number, but I want everyone to understand that there is what we consider some non-recurring or one-time distributions in that. So we get our income tax from the state provides distributions, and it's not all related to the current tax year because there are reconciliation payments, there's late payments, there's penalty payments and things like that. Over the last 2 years, but particularly in fiscal 23, that lump sum, that distribution has been larger than usual. There's a number of reasons for that, but one of them, if quite frankly, is because compliance has increased on both the federal and the state level. So folks that maybe weren't paying their taxes now have to pay them or get caught up and things like that. So it's important to recognize that because we don't believe all of that distribution is going to carry through in the future because some of it was catch-up payments from delinquent and things like that. The second thing I want to call to your attention is the recordation and transfer tax. So although this is a relatively smaller piece of the funding revenue that the county gets, it is an important one. And you can see that when we approved the budget, it was at a rate of 131 million that we were expecting. Because of the high interest rates, we dramatically reduced that to our revised estimate of 108 million, and how it actually came in 23 was about 118. So not as good as we budgeted for, but a little bit better than what we thought was the worst case scenario. And then finally, the other number I'm highlighting for you is the investment income. Everybody knows that interest rates were just off the charts recently. That hurt us a lot in inflation and other pocketbook issues, but it was great for all the money we have earning interest in our various accounts. So that's an extraordinary number, and it will not continue even though we expect that the future interest income will be higher than the baseline of when there was no interest to be had. We think that 28.9 is certainly a high watermark. So when you look at this in totality and you see that the difference from our revised budget at total in the bottom is 98.1 million, I just want to be clear that the budget office's estimation is about 60% of that, or 60 million of that, is what we would consider non-recurring payments. So we don't want to build that into our future projections. If you can go forward, Bob. Okay, so this is just an accounting exercise here. When we close the book on 23, we expect that we'll have about $112.7 million more revenue than in our approved budget. We also realized about $32.7 million of savings or under expenditures. So that totals $145.4 million. That's really great. That gets contributed to our fund balance. We built into our 24 budget $262.4 million. And so that was what we intended to put into the budget, because we had 145.4 of quote unquote savings, if you will. The actual fund balance that we utilized was much less than that. It was about 117 million. If you go forward. So here you can see, as we do the balance sheet, we carried over 371.8 from 22. As we saw in the last slide, we'll end up utilizing about 117 of fund balance in the of 23 fund balance. There's another $1 million of play at various adjustments as we reconcile. And so that gave us now 253.9 million that was available in the 24 budget. And when we passed that budget, we had programmed in 146.8 million. So what that means that at this moment in time, or more precisely last month when we ran these numbers, we were projecting to have an available fund balance of 107 million that will be available for us to deploy in the fiscal year 25 budget. Another caveat, that number will change. That's our best estimate now, but we're only halfway through this fiscal year, and so things will continue to evolve. Okay, our rainy day fund. This is a happy story. The last several years, the county executive and the administration have been able to build up our reserves. So right now, we did last year max out that contribution. We now have 8% of our general fund revenues in reserve, and that is estimated to be $159.7 million. As a reminder to the board, this funding is only available in the event that we underachieve our revenue estimate. So it is truly to help plug gaps in a poor fiscal situation, which we hope never to have to use, at least in the foreseeable future. Okay, this is just looking back on the year-to-year growth from the current budget year to the previous one. And it's interesting because this is somewhat of an unusual phenomena, but if you look at the total numbers, it's actually a slight decrease of $20 million. That is because of the large amount of fund balance that's been in play over the COVID pandemic years. If we do an apples to apples comparison, what we do is we subtract out that incremental fund balance. And so when we do that, then we get, looking year over year in recurring funding only, about a 5% increase from 23 to 24. Interestingly enough, that was pretty much in line with the rate of inflation and the cost of living adjustments that we gave employees last year. So that's a little budget serendipity, as we like to say. Okay, so now we're going to look at the trend of the previous 3 years, starting with this year currently. And the big story here is that recordation and transfer. And what I want everyone to appreciate is that over 2 fiscal years, we basically lost $98 million of revenue. That's the bad news. The good news is we budgeted for this, okay? So if we had chased that revenue and we had projected it to carry forward, we would be in a very large budget deficit at the moment. That is not the case. So that is when we preach good fiscal management. And a lot of times, a lot of our advocates want us to spend every nickel that we can project. This is the reason we don't do that. And so I use this as a cautionary tale, and a positive cautionary tale, that things could have been a lot worse. It'll be interesting to see if any of our peer jurisdictions did chase their recordation and transfer because they will be in much more trouble than we are this year. But if you look across the other revenue streams, what you'll see in general is pretty modest, if not robust growth over the 3 years. And as we'll talk about in a minute, we're largely projecting that to continue. I will briefly call your attention to that income tax number under FY23, that 789.7. You can see again, that's kind of an anomaly due to those non-recurring costs. The same with the investment income there. All right, so this is a pie chart I think everyone's familiar with by this point, but you see our big gravy train is the property tax and income tax. Those are our most robust funding sources. The other one that we look at a lot is the recordation and transfer tax, and that slice of the pie is very much reduced from what we're used to seeing, and you can see why, because of that revenue loss over the last couple years. Most of the other components of this are things that are that we're less in control of setting rates and things like that. So you can move on. Okay, so as we're halfway through the fiscal year, we're kind of looking at how are we doing so far, and I've got generally good news here. On the income tax, strong wage growth is real, and the labor market continues to be strong, if not even defy expectations. So that is the good news. Like I mentioned, we don't expect to see the big lump sum payments of 22 and 23 carry over, but we do think that the wage growth and the increased compliance will allow a continued increase in the overall funding for income tax. For recordation and transfer tax, it's the flip side. We do expect that to continue to lag. Now, no one has a crystal ball. If mortgage interest rates were to dramatically go down, I think that would unleash a pent-up demand in the real estate market. And so that would be good for the county coffers. But at the moment, we're budgeting for what is a more likely scenario, which is that stays depressed at some level. So the good news here in the longer term is when that real estate market recovers, that will be new recurring income for the county without us raising any rates, right? So because we're budgeting to the low, it's all upside. So that's good. And then it's not on here because there's not much to talk about, but property tax, that is our battleship sailing through the ocean. It is very stable. We have a very generous homestead credit that presents a buffer between assessed values and market values. And so even if there was a unfortunate real estate market decrease, the county would be protected for some number of years as that decline caught up to where people's assessed values are. So we're very fortunate to have a strong and robust property tax expectation going forward. All right, so this is just telling a little bit more of that story for the real estate taxes. That big shark fin on the right, that's the FY22 high of 198 million. I will tell you, we're not likely to see that number again in any of our political lifetimes, at least. Looking forward for maybe the end of this term, I hope that we could get up to 130 or 150, and you'll see that would be where the natural growth probably would have gone and if it had followed that slope before Mount Everest showed up, right? So that, again, is upside for the county going forward. This is just a little bit more of why this is happening. You can see that the units sold, which is the dark line, has just actually tanked. And the curious thing is that the average price is still high, and that's because of the demand for housing. If you're paying attention to what's happening on the county side, you might remember that the county executive has been very aggressive at trying to do something about that. And we'll continue to work with the county council to try and address our housing pinch here in Anne Arundel. And this tells the story of the mortgage interest rates. Look, if you're like me, you refinanced a few years ago and you're sitting on a really low rate. If you were to try and go buy a house now, you're looking at 7% probably. That's a big difference, and that's why people aren't buying houses. And it's as simple as that. Until that number gets down, and I'm speculating, but I would say below 6%, we're going to be in a depressed market in terms of activity, at least. Okay, so this is just a contextual slide I put in because, to be honest, the last few years have been so extraordinary. It's good to kind of ground truth everybody. What you're seeing on this graph is the January CPI, which is the consumer price index, which is what we use to determine what our tax revenue cap can be for our property tax. And also generally in recent history is what we've tried to attach our cost of living increases to. You see that as the blue bar. So that is our January consumer price index. The red kind of cap there is what we have, what our property revenue tax cap allows. And you can see over 22 and 23, because the CPI or the inflation was higher than 4.5%, that meant we could only set our property tax at 4.5%. And especially in 22, that was significantly less of what the general cost of living was. That hopefully we won't see that again. You can see we've put in the most recent available number of November to show that it is about 3.1%. We expect in a couple months when they release the January number, my folks tell me it's likely to be in between 2.5% and 3%. But again, that's speculating. The reason I bring this up is because much as you have employee bargaining units negotiating with you, we do that too. And we're trying to set the expectation that we were very generous the last 2 years to acknowledge the situation with inflation and cost of living. And we did the best we can during that time. And we want to be clear that those times are different now and that we will be getting back to a more reasonable expectation in terms of cost of living increases going forward. All right, this is the fun part. What does Chris Strumbauer see in the crystal ball? Okay. All right. Good news is a stable outlook for most of our revenue sources. Income tax, I think, knock on wood, but the general economic consensus from people much smarter than me is that the threat of a recession has decreased. There will still be an economic slowing, if not a downturn, because that is deliberate. That's what the Fed was trying to do when it was cooling off the economy and the high inflation. But the wage market the labor market has been very strong, and that wage growth is real. And we expect that to moderate, but to continue, hopefully into the next year. Property tax is fine. We're not worried about that. We talked about recordation and transfer. That's going to remain low until mortgage rates dictate when people will start shopping again. And then the state funds, most of us have been following the news there, and the governor's administration and the General Assembly have been pretty much telegraphing to expect some belt tightening there. We quite frankly saw this when the superintendent released his budget, and we saw that state contribution number. That was a lot less than what we saw last year. So that makes a big difference. On the county side, we're seeing that in other revenue sources like transportation funds and other state contributions. So to be clear, we don't see the same economic issues in the near term as a county that the state is seeing. But remember, their revenue sources are different. They're looking at they have income tax, of course, but they're looking at sales tax and other things that are different from our revenue pie chart that I showed. And then another significant thing for this year, we are coming to the end of our America Rescue Plan funds. I know you all have your ESSER funds, which is similar, and you're managing that as well. But what we discovered is we used those funds during the pandemic, especially on some health and human services programs that were really helpful. And they're going to continue to be helpful even though the pandemic is waning. There's still need. And so we're going to be looked to shifting some of those outcomes into our general fund. So that will be a strain on our budget. And then the other thing I just wanted to talk about is the macroeconomics. The high inflation, 3%, it's not sky high, but it is higher than we were used to dealing in, the previous, at least while I've been around doing budget. So that is something we're still managing. And the consumer confidence is declining. So that may start to have an effect on some of our other revenue stream. But I'm not here to be all doom and gloom. I'm here to tell you a realistic assessment. And if I had to sum it up, I would say could be worse. So I feel like the decisions that we've made, and again, I want to give a shout out to your team, the superintendent and Mr. Stansky and everybody for our good partnership over the last few years. But the responsible budgeting that we've done over the last few years has put us in this position where I'm not sitting before you freaking out right now. And that's a good thing, right? So one more consequential slide. This is just so that we all know what we're dealing with. I call this our FY24 pressures. So the inflation and wage growth is real, and we have to accommodate that. There is that gap in our recurring revenue because the slice of the pie from recordation and transfer is diminished. And then not only are our state education funding mandates increasing, as you all are very familiar with, but that's happening, unfortunately, at a time when the state contribution as a relative portion is declining. So that makes it extra double tough. And then no surprise here, but debt service and health insurance costs are rising, and we have incremental costs of our prior year pay packages. And then finally, and I know you all are working with this too, but even our baseline budgets are increasing because we're getting over that pandemic hump where we were able to maybe cover some things with ARP funding or FEMA reimbursement. And we're coming through that now and realizing that, hey, some of that wasn't temporary, and we're going to have to pick that up with general fund, right? Especially in our public safety. So public safety overtime, I'll share with you, has pretty dramatically increased over the last couple of years as they've expanded operations, and as I think we're seeing this all across the state and probably the country. So that's something that we're going to have to manage in our budget as well. And then finally, this is a fun slide, and you might remember this from the county executive. He does this in his town halls, but this is kind of putting everyone in his seat for a moment. So right now I can share with you, and you see there's a big asterisk there because I'm always scared sharing numbers this early, but to do this exercise, you have to have something. So we think at the moment that it's reasonable to expect that in March or April, when we finalize our revenue projections, we think it'll be in the range of 80 to 90 million of what we consider incremental recurring revenue. So that is the most important budget factor, is how much more money we have this year than we had last year, because that is what we can use to do more stuff, right? So big caveat, early number, subject to change, all that. But for the sake of this, let's use 85 million as a working number. So that's good. That's a fairly good year, all things considered. It's not like a couple years ago when we all remember where you guys got $50 million and we were doing a lot of cool stuff, right? But it's a good year. So we look at our non-discretionary things, and this is debt service and pension and OPEB and all the things that we have to do, right? There's no negotiating there. We work with our team to get numbers and we plug it in, and that's that, right? That's the easy part. Generally want to assume that that's going to be this year probably about 25 million. So we're taking that right off the top. So that leaves us about $60 million. Okay, then we got our pay packages, right? And we haven't started really negotiations there. I can't give a projection, but I can, for reference, say that it was about 27 million on our side last year, and that was a 5% COLA. As we discussed earlier, we don't expect inflation to be as high as it was last year, and we expect that number will be lower. So our COLA will probably be less, and therefore our pay package total number will be less, but I can't speculate what that would be. And then once you get out of that, we have our component units and our county adjustments. So remember, we fund the libraries, we fund the community college. There's this little thing called the Board of Ed. And last year, we worked really well with you all, and we were in we started out, I think, at 40 million, and then remember we did the thing for the teacher salaries, and we were able to do some more. So it ended up around 42 or 43. That was a good year. We would love to shoot for that again this year. I'll be candid. I don't know if we're going to get there, considering our other constraints. And then we have on our side, we have our departmental base increases. So those are all the adjustments that we have to make just to keep doing the things we're already doing. And then our departmental supplemental requests, these are new programs or adjustments that our directors bring to us to say, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could do this? So all those things need to total up, and they all basically need to add up to what our final incremental recurring number is, right? Sounds super fun, huh? It's a giant piece of the puzzle, or a giant puzzle to put together. I'll admit to you guys, I enjoy this because I love problem solving, but there's going to be a lot of prioritization exercise this year. So just to, to kind of set the tone, I look forward, and the whole county team looks forward to working with you guys to prioritize what we can do for the Board of Ed this year, and make every dollar go as far as it can. And this is just to remind us that the county exec has a series of budget town halls where he encourages the public to come out and let us know what they think. There is, I think, 8 of them this year, and they're going to be in person. And there'll be a brief presentation that the county exec and myself will perform, but mostly it's to listen to what folks want to say to us. And if I recall, that's about it. Bob, is that the last one? Great. Well, thank you for your attention. I'm at your service, and we'll be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Trumbauer. Ms. Corkadell.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Trumbauer. I just have a couple questions, and they're not necessarily related directly to education, but to the budget as a
Sure.
whole. And I do think that helps inform us when we're having our conversations. I've got a couple here, so let me pick the 2 that definitely most, and then if time permits, maybe one more question. Could you expand a little bit first on what state funds that the county is receiving that we're expected to see a decrease? Because we know where our decreases are coming at on the state. It would be insightful for us to have a better understanding with that 118 million
Sure.
giant deficit that they're looking at.
Yeah. So I would say the 2 most consequential are the state contribution to the education, obviously, which you all are very
Yes.
familiar with. The other one to us is what we call highway user revenue. And if you're following, the state transportation department is projecting rather large deficits, and they need to trim their funding. This is unfortunate timing because the Maryland Association of Counties, MACO, and others had been working over the previous years to restore that state highway user revenue to something close to what it had been years ago, where it was much higher. So it had dropped down to close to nothing, and over the last several years had been gradually building back up, which was very helpful to county governments. But now we're seeing it go in the other direction. The number that I most recently saw from MDOT was that we could expect $1.3 million less than they had originally told us. And that, of course, is a preliminary number because the state has to go through its budget exercise. There's other state shared revenues that we get, casino money and things like that, which I think the slots revenue is still relatively strong, but it's down off the peak of a couple years ago when people had, I guess, money in their pocket and they were going to Maryland Live. That is certainly decreasing. And then there's other smaller slices of the pie, but those are the specific ones. And if you're interested, I can provide a more detailed accounting. But if you're just looking for the gist of it, the highway user revenue is the big one that we're worried about.
That actually does affect education because that's how we get sidewalks.
Yeah.
And the more sidewalks we have, the less necessity for bus stops and other types of things. And we hear those complaints and they're heart-wrenching.
Right.
So
and
many of our roads are on state. People don't recognize that most of that is not county. It's actually state.
I should mention that our discussion is around the operating budget, but we
Mhm.
do expect there may be state impacts to contributions to the capital budget too, which would affect individual projects.
Well,
But
that's a
it's-
good intro into my next question, which has to do with the capital budget. I know that spending affordability goes over based on all of these numbers
Mhm.
and what we can expect for to be able to afford in our CIP. And so could you give us some little insight? I know it's still preliminary and they're just wrapping up right now, but
Yes.
if you could give us a little insight on what we can expect, because we do know that Blueprint is going to put certain pressure points on our facilities, specifically in pre-K environments, in the community school arenas, and even our ability to fully complete our implementation
Sure.
of Triple E. For example, we still have kids being tutored and brought outside in the hallways.
Yeah.
We know that that is not, people are meeting still occasionally in some of our older building closets. So our backlog remains significant, and that includes the county too.
Right.
From maintenance comes out of CIP all the way down the
Right.
line. I think it would be beneficial for us as we're planning of how we're strategically positioning ourselves for the continued increase in population that Anne Arundel County is experiencing.
Sure. Well,
yeah.
so what I can share, and the Spending Affordability Committee is still deliberating. We haven't gotten their report yet, so I don't want to scoop them. But in general, on the capital budget side, we have been, I think, very effective at putting together capital budgets that do a lot of good while staying within our affordability guidelines and limits. And part of the reason that we've been able to do so much, well, there's two reasons over the last couple years, is when County Executive Pittman introduced the PPI fund, or the Fund for Permanent Public Improvements. That was a $250 million infusion into the capital budget. About half of that went to school projects. And then that came in just ahead of the accelerated state funding for education projects as well. So what that means is we've got a giant slug of big BOE projects kind of moving through. Anyone heard of the Old Mill Complex? You guys familiar with this, right? So, what I liken this to is if you've ever seen one of those nature videos where like a python eats some big animal and like you see this big, so that big hump is working its way through our CIP. And we are extremely fortunate that coincided with having the PPI funds and the extra state, which I always want to call BLT, but it's the opposite. It's built BTL, built to learn. Yes. So those funds coincided with that big thing that's moving through. Once we're done with those large capital projects, that will free up some capacity to do the next things, right? And we know there's always more things on the horizon. But the saving grace for us, and I believe that it will continue again this year, is, and I showed you some of the slides at the beginning of this presentation, our fund balance, we tend to convert to pay-as-you-go funds to put into the capital budget. And that is the secret sauce that keeps our projects on track, even through the high inflation and doing all this stuff. So that's a long-winded answer to your question that I will summarize this way. We are, at this point, fairly comfortable that we will be able to keep our overall bond issuance and stable and be within our county debt affordability guidelines for at least the next year. And that will include another influx of essentially cash from our fund balance, right? Moving forward in the medium term, I think that we will be forced to look at when we can increase our annual bond authority to some modest amount, because stuff's not getting any cheaper, right? And it's not like we got to stop building stuff. So we're going to have to do that. But it was important for us to live within our means. And that is one of the reasons why the county was able to secure a AAA rating from all three bond rating agencies last year, is because we've managed that so responsibly and set ourselves up so well for the future. So we're not over leveraged. And I think that we have a stable outlook going forward. So does that generally give you the flavor of what you were looking for?
It does, because I know what some of the background is. Thank you so very much. And I'll just say that I echo Chamber this idea of the transportation, whether it's the transportation fund lockbox, or the casino education money lockbox. That's not real.
Yeah.
That is just political rhetoric that I've never, ever seen actually upheld, not in this state or any other state. So hopefully we'll get some realistic conversations coming from the state so we can well plan. But it sounds like we're pretty decently insulated from some of those, but we are definitely going to have to rethink how we offer our support for our family and community, because it may not be able to involve, flat out salary increases at that pace, because no other industry is experiencing that. They did all what we did.
Mhm.
The one time, let's re-elevate everybody for the inflation, but the inflation numbers are coming down. But that also means the yield rates are going down. So that does flip the spending affordability. On one side helps the other, doesn't help
Everything
the
is
other,
connected.
right?
Yes, everything is connected.
But
Yep.
thank you for the insight, Mr. Tremor. And I know you have a hardworking team that this time of year, these people, they don't leave the fourth floor. They are constantly there, just working nonstop, addressing all of our questions and so many. So please extend my gratitude to their continued work and efforts, because it is a lion's share. I mean, by a nonstop working, they're there at 7 a.m. and at 7 p.m. and they're still there, doing whatever they can to do as much as possible for the people. So
Yes. Well, thank you.
They have
And
a great
yes,
team.
we are very lucky to have a fantastic budget team, and they make a lot of us look good.
yeah,
So,
and they don't complain, and they don't say, well, what's in it for me, or what am I getting in return, or they don't get stipends and stuff. They just work for the greater good of everyone, and we continue to reap the benefits under your leadership, sir. Thank you.
Ms. Shalheim.
As always, thank you for the wonderful and informative presentation. I particularly like the real talk every year, good, bad, ugly. I'm glad that the storm didn't come like I thought it might today. So, but it was realistically, presented, and I really appreciate that. I don't have any questions. It was all pretty much made sense to me, and so I just thank you for your time.
Great.
And for your team. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Okay, seeing no more lights, Mr. Trumbauer, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the entire board. And if anybody has a follow-up question, you know how to get in touch with me. And I would encourage people to attend some of the county execs town halls. Those are always very informative. And believe it or not, we do record all of the comments, and there are some good ideas that come out of that. And I can tell you personally that things have made it in the budget because of those town halls. So it is a worthwhile effort. Thank you again.
Thank you. And now we're going to be moving on to item 2.05, our Educator of the Month. Ms. Dent?
So I love my colleague. She was going to take care of me. Thank you very much. The Educator of the Month for January 2024 is Heather Kurtzel. Awesome. Congratulations. She's a music teacher at Westmead Early Education Center. In every task, our Educator of the Month takes on Westmead Early Education Center, she does it with efficiency, understanding, professionalism, and decorum. Heather is a true role model. She goes above and beyond for the school community and new teachers. She participates in school functions with a smile and always engages with students at their level. If there is a special way at Westmead Early Education Center, you can count on Ms. Kurtzel to be there with colorful and coordinated tutus, I like that, matching Converse and a fun headband, and spreading lots of joy. Heather was an integral part of the first annual Veterans Day ceremony, teaching pre-K through 3, pre-K 4, and kindergarten students the national anthem, and to sing to their active duty veterans and civilians' parents as our honored guest. This is a part of the ongoing mission to be more responsive in the tune with the military culture around Fort Meade, creating bonds and celebrating families. In every task Heather takes on, creating a cultural arts schedule for 12 classroom teachers, establishing a bus duty schedule, beginning a faculty advisory council, the yearbook committee, and mentoring new teachers. She also takes on the role of other schools, which she works as a volunteer in her children's school. I don't know where she finds this time. Heather makes every effort to learn all the names of the students who comes to her music class and their various likes, hobbies, family dynamics, and so on. She treats each and every child as she would her own. She treats them with the treasurable and the importance. They all smile when they greet her in the hallway. You can tell just that she genuinely cares for the students and the school. Ms. Heather Kurtzel is the Westmead Early Education Center's. We are lucky to have you and the music that you make. You embodies AACPS awesome. So on behalf of the Board of Education and Anne Arundel County Public Schools, it is our honor to recognize you as the Educator of the Month for January 2024. Congratulations, and would you please come forward and accept this recognition? All right, thank you today.
I have my husband and my 3 kids who attend Glen Burnie Park in our and Old Mill, part of that Old Mill complex Mr. Trumbauer was talking about, Old Mill Middle. And then my principal, Mrs. Callan, and 2 of my coworkers and my parents and my 2 sisters.
I am desperately want to know how did they convince you to come up here?
I was just asked to attend a meeting with Ms. Callan.
How was it?
Sure.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And the floor is yours to say a few words. Oh.
To say a few words. Thank you very much. I do, as my husband said, he said, I don't know how to find the time, and he said, me either. I do like to keep myself busy, and Anne Arundel County's been a huge part of who I am and why I am where I am. I went through Anne Arundel County schools all the way from pre-K through graduation, and so here we are.
Congratulations.
So thank you.
Next, we have item 2.06, Employee of the Month. Ms. Corkadell.
Thank you. Today, the Board of Education recognizes an unsung hero at Southern Middle School, Principal Secretary Lindsay Abrams. Ms. Abrams goes above and beyond her job description as the principal secretary. She is always professional in her interactions and decisions. She is dependable and flexible, knowledgeable about all aspects of the school, and helps ensure that the building runs smoothly. Kelly McVeigh, Southern Middle School's principal, said, and I quote, "Miss Abrams is an outstanding employee, and I could not imagine my transition to Southern Middle School as a first-year principal without her." Lindsay takes the time to work with students waiting to be seen by an administrator, helps in the main office from writing discipline letters when the discipline secretary was out on extended leave, to answering phone calls and signing parents in and out. Miss Abrams plays a vital role in helping coworkers, parents, and students. She will assist administration with extracting video footage and will also help the custodial staff. From sorting through the lost and found to ensuring the cafeteria is clean enough for a town hall meeting, there is nothing that Miss Abrams will not do. And I know personally that is one of the favorite places to have town hall and community meetings in the greater Southern County. And I've interacted with many of our schools and non-schools and libraries, and I've got to say Southern Middle School remains my favorite because of the staff and how they treat you when you come in, and the way they make sure that everybody in the community feels welcome, even after hours, and they're willing to stay late when that community meeting runs late. So, and that is in large because of Miss Abrams. Lindsay Abrams, the Board of Education of Anne Arundel County Public Schools, and Southern Middle School are blessed to have you on their team. So for these reasons, we recognize you as the January 2024 Employee of the Month. Congratulations, and please join me up front.
So tell us, how did they get you here today? She just says that we need to go to the board for our meeting. So I say, okay, let's go. I know, yes, I know. And then she walks in, it's a board meeting. I'm like, oh, okay. Now I'm nervous.
Nothing to be nervous about.
Yeah.
Would you like to share who's with you today?
Sure. My husband, John, and my youngest son, Jonathan. He's back there. I have one that's ill at home and the other one's a dog. I know, yeah. So it's been, coming off of fun holiday stuff. Everybody's shared their germs, so.
That's what they do.
Yes,
bring
they
home
do.
the germs
I
to the
know,
litter.
yes. Yep.
Absolutely. Oh, that's wonderful. And then anyone from the
Oh, yeah, I'm
school
sorry,
team?
yes, yeah. Yes. My principal, Kelly McVeigh, our school psychologist, Ms. Kempton, and then our volunteers here.
Awesome. Well, this is a copy of
Thank-
this
Oh,
script
perfect, okay.
and a little piece here. And then after we do all this, we're going to go out and with your family and stuff.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
I think
And next we have item 2.07, our volunteer of the month, Mr. Lynn.
Rosalind Carter encouraged us to do what you can to show you care about other people, and you will make our world a better place. This month's Volunteer of the Month has made Southern Middle School a better place by showing how much she cares about the students and staff. It is an honor to recognize Eunice Lynn as our January 2024 Volunteer of the Month. For the past 8 years, Miss Lynn has been a beacon of positivity. Starting last school year, she has devoted most of her time and energy each week to Southern Middle School's PBIS school store. The store, in which students shop with Bulldog bucks they earned for demonstrating positive learning behaviors, has become a hub of positive reinforcement, and Miss Lynn has been at the forefront of making it a resounding success. As the keeper of the school store, Miss Lynn goes the extra mile to ensure its shelves are stocked with items that captivate the interest of our students. She gathers donated and purchased items, makes sure enough items are on display for all 3 lunch periods, and organizes remaining items for future weeks. This year, she recruited and trained new PTO volunteers to work with her. Her thoughtful organization and meticulous planning reflects her dedication to providing an enriching and enjoyable experience for every student who walks through the school store doors. When Miss Lynn started volunteering at Southern Middle, she was a volunteer in the alternative curriculum classroom. She now demonstrates her commitment to inclusivity by welcoming a student from the ACC program to help run the store, teaching valuable life skills such as counting money and customer service skills. Miss Lynn's warm greetings and genuine smile have become synonymous with the school store experience. She creates an atmosphere where every student feels welcomed and valued. Miss Lynn's ability to remember anecdotes about each student and build meaningful relationships speaks volumes about her commitment. Miss Lynn's impact extends beyond the walls of the school store. She plays a pivotal role in supporting our teachers, offering a helping hand with routine tasks, and ensuring that the Bulldog bucks flow seamlessly throughout the school, enhancing the overall positive atmosphere at Southern Middle School. Miss Lynn's selflessness and dedication do not go unnoticed. She is truly a treasure to Southern Middle School. She is a role model, a source of inspiration, and a true embodiment of what it means to be a Southern Middle School Bulldog. Miss Lynn, Southern Middle, and the entire Anne Arundel County Public Schools community is blessed to have such a dedicated volunteer, and we thank you for your service. Would you please come forward? It is with great appreciation that I would like to present this Volunteer of the Month bell and certificate to you as a symbol of our appreciation. So can I just ask how you were brought here? What they told you to get you here?
Emily Manders, the teacher I work with, she texted me this morning and said, "Can you go to some informational thing?" And then when I asked Ms. McVeigh, I said, "What is this?" Because I didn't expect, a board meeting, and she's like, so I had no idea, and I really appreciate it. I mean, Southern Middle School is it's just an amazing school to work with. So, and I never had kids, so this is my kind of the way to fulfill the satisfaction of working with kids, and also being a kind of a pseudo teacher. So thank you all very, very much. Thank you all very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we will now take a short break for some photographs. Thank you. So, welcome back, everyone. As we continue, we do not have any public comment, and so we're going to be moving on to item 4.02, new course approvals.
All right. Wait a minute. Hold on one second. All right. Thank you. Hold on, let me make sure this is on. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The superintendent recommends approval of two courses beginning in the 2024-2025 school year: Foundations of Curriculum and Instruction, which is an education prep course, and Teaching as a Profession. So for this presentation, we will have Nicole, our staff member, to present to the board and the community.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Nicole Howard, and I serve as the Director of Curriculum and Assessments. At the close of the presentation today, Mr. Sackett, Coordinator of Career and Technical Education, and I will be happy to answer any questions. In accordance with board policy for curriculum, today I will present two courses for your approval. The main goal of AACPS is to ensure that every student belongs, grows in their learning, and meets or exceeds standards as achievement and excellent gaps are eliminated. Courses are designed to provide all AACPS students with rigorous, relevant, and inclusive opportunities that enable them to successfully navigate and positively impact the 21st century global society. The Teacher Academy of Maryland CTE Completer Program Pathway prepares students for careers in education. This program will function as a grow your own initiative aimed at training our future AACPS teachers in alignment with both the system and the blueprint for Maryland Futures Goal. There are 4 courses in the pathway. This year we implemented the first course, Child Growth and Development Through Adolescence, in 5 schools. Today, we'll be seeking board approval for the next 2 courses in the pathway. Teaching as a Profession is the second course for the Teacher Academy of Maryland CTE Completer Program. This program is currently available at 5 high schools with the ultimate objective of extending it to all 14 high schools. In this course, emphasis is placed on identifying the current, historical, philosophical, and social perspectives of American education, including trends and issues. Students will explore major approaches to human learning and provide students with valuable curricular and lab experiences where students will learn about becoming educators and spend time observing classrooms and participating in student teaching. Foundations of Curriculum and Instruction is the third course for the Teacher Academy of Maryland CTE Completer Pathway. This program is currently available at our 5 high schools with the ultimate objective of extending it to all 14. In this course, students explore the development of varied curricular delivery models in response to the developmental needs of all children. Emphasis is placed on the development of varied curricular materials and activities to promote active learning, classroom management strategies, and a supportive classroom environment. Additionally, students will participate in guided observations and field experiences to critique classroom lessons in preparation for developing and implementing their own. Students will continue to develop the components of a working portfolio to be assembled upon completion of the internship associated with the Teacher Academy of Maryland CTE pathway. Our plan is for these courses to be available for students to enroll in for the 2024-2025 school year. With that goal in mind, our teams will be working hard to ensure that we put in place all that is necessary around curriculum writing and professional development for student success. At this time, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you.
Ms. Shalhan.
Oh, I love approving new courses. One of my favorite parts of this job. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to send some gratitude your way for the development of these 2 amazing new courses. And at the appropriate time, I'd love to offer the motion to approve these. Thanks.
Dr. Tobin.
Thank you, President Silkworth, and thank you all. It is a joy to see these new courses online, and exciting to know that we are developing some of our own students towards a profession that is both a fabulous profession and much in need. This may not be a question for curriculum folks, but maybe if I could just put this out there, I'd love a sense of how many students we're starting to get in this program. I mean, I understand it's relatively new. So at some appropriate date, I'd love to see, some numbers and.
I can answer that.
Oh, fabulous.
We
Great.
have 384 students enrolled in
Oh,
our
wow.
first course in our 5 high schools currently.
That's terrific. So that's great. And the goal is to expand this
Correct.
to other parts of the county.
Correct.
Do you have a sense of the timeline of that, or?
We're really looking at trying to strengthen the program as we launch it and make sure that we have everything in place before we go too
Right.
big. And so we would like to do it as quickly as we can.
Sure.
And then there's some other components to this. As you all know, last year, we requested in the budget for 200 slots to hire students that would be able to intern and earn income. And so we also know that we had some students who worked in our schools last year that have interest during the summer of wanting to go into education. We think that there's a lot of opportunities that we can provide for our students, even as they matriculate through college. Once they hit that second year,
Yeah.
they're able to be hired as substitute teachers, TAs, things of that nature, and they can continue to build their skill set. So there's some big plans for how we plan to nurture those students who will continue to move on that trajectory and to try to groom them that there's no other place for you to look at once you graduate but Anne Arundel County. So this is just the beginning of it all.
Well, that's excellent. And I would just like to add, as we just heard from Mr. Trumbauer and many people here about the complexities of implementing Blueprint and the costs and so on. I also just want to note for the public that this is also part of that legislation, being able to have these kinds of programs that truly enable students to come out of high school ready to pursue what they want to pursue. So congratulations and thank you. And this is terrific to see. Much appreciated.
Miss Ellis.
Thank you. And yeah, there certainly is a big push to get kids in this very, very important profession. And it's great to see the interest. There is concern that I'm sure there are students at other schools who are interested. So back to your point, Dr. Bedell, like the internships would be open to all students to apply, right? So there's other opportunities to be able to develop in this way. Thank you.
Ms. Corkadell.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that this is exactly, Dr. Tobin is right. This is the way careers used to happen. And thankfully, we're getting back to that again, where you have someone mentoring you, where you have the opportunity to explore whether or not it is for you. And I think overall, those industries who are successful with that are also successful in their business ventures. And we are no different to that. The fact is, our labor shortages are so down. And in this region, it's even more so than the national average. But the national average is down. So to get people excited again about education is going to be a heavy lift, because education bore the brunt of all things that went wrong in COVID. And so for people to now recognize that and turn that passion and turn that focus that they had on their students' education for the first time in decades, to now be able to do something constructive, I think is amazing. And once again, Anne Arundel is leading the region with this program and will continue to do so. And I always love those moments. That even makes for happier days. Thank you.
Seeing no more lights, I think, Ms. Schauheim, you have a motion.
I move to approve both courses as offered. Thank you.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Ms. Howe.
Ms. Dent,
Aye.
Mr. Lynn,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Dr. Tobin,
Aye.
Miss Ellis,
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
Ms. Schalheim,
Aye.
and Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to item 5.01, reports of policy committee report.
Thank you. So the policy committee met just yesterday, and we went over two policies for review and revision. Policy IB, school calendar, and policy KC, community use of school facilities. There was some discussion, a few changes that will be brought before the board, I believe, at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Item 5.02, the president's report. We have a brief report. First of all, Happy New Year to everyone, everybody up here, everybody out there. Happy New Year. Hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. And of course, welcome to the first board meeting of 2024. Just a couple of announcements. Legislative breakfast on Monday, January the 8th, 2024. The Board of Ed will hold its 9th annual legislative breakfast here in the boardroom. We will begin at 7:30 a.m. and we look forward to collaborating with all of our legislative friends and stakeholders. We'd like to also remind everyone that the Board of Education will hold two budget hearings. The first will take place on Tuesday, January 9, 2024 at 6 p.m. That will be at Old Mill High School in the auditorium. And the second will take place on Thursday, January 11, 2024 at 6 p.m. here in the boardroom. Reminder to my colleagues, Board of Ed members, that budget questions are due to Ms. Howell on Tuesday, the 8th of January. And that concludes the president's report. Moving on to item 5.03, superintendent's report. Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, President Silkworth. I hope that everyone had a restful and enjoyable break. I have just a few items today also. First, I want to congratulate our entire athletics program, and in particular, the wrestling coaches and student athletes at Old Mill and Annapolis High Schools for putting on the first ever high school outdoor wrestling match at Old Mill just prior to the break. Special thanks to Old Mill Principal Allison McKeska, Athletics Director Pat Carey, and wrestling coach Jim Grimm for their efforts. And thanks also to United Rentals, which provided the portable heating units for the evening. Next, I want to highlight something that we think will go a long way towards increasing engagement with our non-English speaking families. Yesterday, we launched new Facebook pages in Korean, Urdu, Chinese, and Vietnamese. These pages will have general and audience-specific content, and we're hoping they help involve families in these communities the way all our Spanish Facebook page has done. This initiative is a collaboration of our communications office and our Office of School and Family Partnerships. That team is working on more ways to reach out to these and other communities, so stay tuned. This is just another example of us embracing this concept of creating a sense of belonging in this school district, and I do want to again thank all of our staff members who are making these things happen. Next, if you looked at the weather forecast at all, I hate this part. You know, so you know it looks like we may get some snow this weekend. I want to take a few minutes to just talk about how we make decisions in these instances. School closings are done on a countywide basis, not a zone basis. We have to weigh the best interests of 85,000 students, 14,000 employees, and 130 buildings. Different weather from one part of our county to the other. So what happens is morning calls will take place. We have teams on the road to survey conditions. A recommendation then will come to me from our cabinet members who are working together in a collaborative manner. And then ultimately, I have to make a final decision. Here are the scenarios, just to remind people. Open schools on time or on a delayed basis. Close schools entirely with no instruction, a good old-fashioned snow day that I have assured everyone we will not take away. If it is snow like this in this picture, we want people outside playing in the snow. Closed schools with virtual recorded instruction. Let me make sure that everybody understand that along with this next one, closed schools with virtual live instruction. This could be in cases where we're looking at slushy, icy conditions where we believe it is not safe to put people on our streets and our roads. But it's not the conditions that people are going to go outside and enjoy the snow. We do not want to waste an instructional day like that, because what will happen is then as these days that we use these days, it ultimately may result in us having to be in school longer in June when everybody clearly want to be out of school. We also have a responsibility to take full advantage of instructional time now, knowing that our students have state assessments and things of that nature that are important, that after that date, when we get into the month of June, it has already passed, and there are going to be a number of families who will decide to move on and go on their vacations, yielding those days meaningless in many cases. So that's why this is important. Also, the same type of considerations come into play when deciding whether to cancel after school or extracurricular activities. Other agencies may make other decisions. So in the case that we have weather that may be bad during the first part of the school day, and it warrants that we cannot put buses on the road early, doesn't necessarily mean extracurricular events in some cases are going to be fully canceled, because conditions could improve around 2 or 3 o'clock, allowing for us to still have our athletic events and those extracurricular events that we decide are safe to do so. So everyone has to understand that no one decision is going to be perfect for everybody. That's just the nature of this. I coach a lot of aspiring superintendents, and I tell them, this is one area that no matter what you do, you're not right. So just get accustomed to that. We make what we want to do is to let everybody understand that we make what we think is the best decision for our county as a whole with information we have at the time. We need to make that decision. Decisions are made and announced through all of our social media and communication channels. More information can also be found at www.aacps.org/closings. So I just wanted to once again verbally remind everybody, we haven't had to make some of these tough decisions in my first year. There are possibilities that may happen this school year, but we will do it in a very informed way, a very transparent way, and we will do it with the best interest of the school system at the forefront. So the final item that I have is just our continuous update to the community around where we are from a staffing standpoint. And as you can see, we begin the 2024 calendar year. We're holding steady in terms of our vacancies. This classroom teacher number of at 110, I think we did a phenomenal job holding throughout the fall. This is a natural occurrence where people will make decisions at the holiday break, the winter break, and at the start of a semester on whether they're going to continue to work. So we are still 73 teachers ahead of where we were last year at this time. You can see where we are with the school bus situation. We're fully staffed still. Custodians, we're still in much better shape. Food service employees, crossing guards have been pretty static all year, where we've not really seen much movement. And for most of the year, we had 2 athletic trainer vacancies. We finally filled one of those, so we're down to one. President Silkworth, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. Michelle Hunt.
I called Mr. Mosier about this yesterday, but I also wanted to share with you. I think it's fabulous about the 4 new Facebook pages. This increases family engagement. It's helpful for inclusivity, for everyone feeling a sense of belonging in their school system. And I just want to thank you as the leader, but probably more importantly in this particular instance, the teams that developed those pages and their content, and will continue to do so into the future. I just think they're great. I've already liked all 4 of them. I've already shared all the information about it on my social media. That was yesterday, right after the announcement. I just think it's great. Thank you so much for doing that.
Well, I don't know. I know we recorded a video. There were a number of outtakes.
I watched all of them. They were great.
So yeah, it probably is a comedy reel.
I haven't seen that yet, but President Silkworth, if I could say, Dr. Bedell was gracious enough to record welcome messages in those languages in videos on those pages. So I just think that
Excellent.
That says a lot.
Excellent.
No first takes.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Ms. Corkadell.
So that is the topic of what I wanted to just say and follow up. And just to put it in perspective, Dr. Bedell, before you got here, many, many years ago, going on about 10 years ago, or I guess 8 or 9, we had budget town halls with the county. And we're up in Glen Burnie, and it was actually snowing that night. But everybody came out. A lot of stakeholders did. We didn't do by district back then. And I will say that we had a huge API represented group of folks asking for the ability to be engaged in their students' education. And so now fast forward to see that. About 3-4 years ago, we had that conversation on the dais, and we knew at that point that the bandwidth was not there, and we didn't have the support. And now to see that we do have the support and we are making progress on that, I think is a little more monumental than we finally got it right. It means that for many families that they can actually engage in their students' education. And I can tell you for many of these communities, we're still dealing with first-generation Americans of their children, and many of their children are actually moving here as new citizens, new Americans, and their parents are not. And so to have this, to be able to empower our students to connect with their families who have not grasped the English language yet, as well as these families being able to advocate for their student. And it was in the places of advocacy with special education, if you think about it, of the ability to access enhanced programs, magnets, Advent, as well as the tutoring and support that they needed, because we know that certain language categories are not as robust as others in our school system. And so our bilingual is predominantly in the Castilian languages, right? So it is important, I think, for us to continue to build on that. But I just wanted to, I know I'm talking a lot, but this is a really big deal for so many families, and I've been advocating for it since I sat on the other side. And so to see this happen for our school district, I think is huge.
So let me just respond to that, because I give credit where credit is due. I know over the years, people tend to want to beat up the amount of staffing that we have in central office. And I've shared this with people. Last year, at least based on the data, we were the number 2 most efficient from a central office to student ratio out of the 24 different school districts. But I also know that we have requested support in this area from this school board in the county over the years, and we've gotten support. And so when you have the bandwidth to be able to do these things, especially giving how more and more diverse our school district is becoming, we're able to do these things. So part of that goes back to you all as elected officials and to the county the county council and the county executive for supporting us in order for us to be able to do this. So thank you all.
Ms. Ellis.
Yeah, I just want to express my gratitude. I think it's a great service that's needed. Um, but back to the weather, Saturday, we might all just be stuck at home watching our local team finish up their season. Go Ravens.
Go Steelers.
I mean, there's some Commander fans in here. They're not feeling good about that comment. At least my team, we still have some hope. Just saying.
Okay. So we'll be moving on to consent items, award of contracts. Do I hear anyone?
Yeah,
willing
let's move to bundle those 6.01
Do I have a
and
second?
6.03.
Second.
We have consensus. Okay. We have a motion. Or Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Mr. President. The superintendent recommends that the Board of Education authorize the award of contracts on the consent items 6.01 through 6.03.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing no lights, Ms. Howe.
Ms. Dent,
Yay.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Dr. Tobin,
Aye.
Miss Ellis,
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim,
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, item 7.01, administrative personnel appointments. Dr. Bedell, I don't believe you have any. Okay, item 7.02, personnel. Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Mr. President. The superintendent recommends that the board approve the actions as stipulated on the attached sheets as discussed in executive close.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any comment? Any discussion? Ms. Howe.
Ms. Dent,
Aye.
Mr. Lynn,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Dr. Tobin,
Aye.
Miss Ellis,
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim,
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, that leads us to item 7.03, third reading, classification of fund balances.
Thank you, Mr. President. The superintendent recommends approval of policy DBK, subject to final correction for style and format. For
So
this
moved.
presentation, we have staff.
So moved.
Good
We have a
afternoon.
second? Okay,
Good afternoon,
Ms.
President
Wilson.
Silkworth, Vice President Frank, members of the board, and Dr. Bedell. I'm Grace Wilson, Legislative and Policy Specialist.
Matt Stansky, Chief Financial Officer.
Policy DBK, classification of fund balances before you this afternoon on third reading. As a reminder, the policy was adopted in June of 2015 and provides authority, guidance, and limitation for determining the classification and limitation on the use of board fund balances. Due to substantive revisions made by the board to the policy on second reading, the policy was posted for an additional public comment period. There were no additional comments received during this period. And with that, Mr. Stansky and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
okay, seeing no lights, I know we have a motion and a second. No lights, Ms. Howe.
Can you repeat who the second was, please? Thank you. Ms. Dent,
Aye.
Mr. Lynn,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Dr. Tobin,
Aye.
Miss Ellis,
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim,
Aye.
and Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, we have another action item, item 7.04, the New Village Academy Charter School schematic design and design development.
Thank you, Mr. President. The superintendent recommends approval of the New Village Academy Public Charter School schematic design and design development.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Seeing no lights, Ms. Howe.
Ms. Dent,
Aye.
Mr. Lynn,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Dr. Tobin,
Aye.
Miss Ellis,
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim,
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
We are now at item 7.05, Superintendent's recommendation on new school names.
Mr. President, members of the board, I will ask the board to approve both of these separately. In case there are any questions on the first one, we will focus on the high school. The superintendent recommends approval of the name of Severn Run High School for the county's newest high school. And if we need our principal to come to the table, she is here.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Seeing no lights, Ms. Howe.
Oh, no.
Pardon me, I do have one light, Miss Ellis.
I just want to make a statement again, related to both schools, but to thank everyone for their input. There's no way to come to complete consensus on something like a school name. So I do appreciate everyone's input. And while the choices made by the committees might not be what I chose if I was part of that process, I'll certainly respect the work of the community, and I appreciate everyone's work on it.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Ms. Howe.
Ms. Dent,
Aye.
Mr. Lynn,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Dr. Tobin,
Aye.
Ms. Ellis,
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim,
Aye.
and Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, do we have a motion for?
I gotta read it. So on the
Yes, Dr.
for the elementary school, the superintendent recommends approval of the name of Two Rivers Elementary School for the county's newest elementary school. If there is a need for questions, myself or Chris Truffer will be available as Alexis McKay is sick.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. I'm not seeing any lights, so Ms. Howe.
Ms. Dent,
Aye.
Mr. Lynn,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
Dr. Tobin,
Aye.
Ms. Ellis,
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim,
Aye.
and Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, we move on to several review items. 8.01 monthly minority and small business enterprise utilization report for the fiscal year 23.
I did have a couple of questions about this.
Okay.
If anyone's available?
Yes, Matt Stansky will come up.
For the record, Matt Stansky, Chief Financial Officer. I'll let my colleague introduce herself as well.
Jennifer McCoy, the Specialist for Minority and Small Business Enterprise Office.
Thank you. Thank you for this report. I always look forward to it. I really just wanted to ask, you gave a great summary in the report and a lot of interesting information. But again, what would you say, what do you foresee, as best anyone can foresee, in the next few years? We've gone down from where we were a few years ago in terms of the awarding of contract dollars and so forth. Do you think that there's a trajectory we're going to move up, or is there anything sort of structurally that you think we're up against here that could or should be changed either at the state level or some other issues?
Yeah, so I think a couple things, Dr. Tobin, and I'll let my colleague chime in if I miss anything. When we do the 10-year comparison, the projects that we did back in the mid 2010s to 2015s just lent themselves more to minority participation. And then there's a state law change, I think now 3 or 4 years ago, around we can only use 50% of a project around suppliers, whereas then that's where you see a lot of your participation is in the supply area. And now that we can only use 50% of a project for supplies, that has limited our ability to sort of meet the targets that we had 10 years ago. I will say year over year, we're doing better. And over the last, but to your point, we haven't hit that mid 2000s area that we had in the past. And I think for the most part, it's directly related to that supplier law change. But, you know, Jennifer and the team, I think, do a great job. And her predecessor, who's here too, Miss Avery, who was promoted in my office, which is why she's no longer sitting next to me. And we have Jennifer here. I think they've just done a really nice job, and our leaders in this area. We coordinate a lot with Montgomery County, Howard County, Prince George's County in our outreach. We actually have a great relationship with Dr. Heiser, Mr. Roof, and that team and facilities who have also owned the goals and work well with us to ensure that not only are we hitting and exceeding the goals, but that we're getting high quality work both from the prime and subcontractors.
No, I know there's a lot of great work, and I truly appreciate it. I really, I want to know if there's any advocacy or any other thing we could be doing to, address any issues that may be there. If the 50% continues to be a real stumbling block, for example, whatever it might be, because I know the team works really well to reach what is a really important goal for the growth of our community in so many ways. So thank you for the work that you do. And
I'll add, Dr. Tobin, I think one thing we could do is, all of you have your own networks, right? And as we have our outreach programs and events, we'll make sure the board's aware of them and that you can ensure that word is getting out to those vendors. Because really those opportunities are there not only to learn how to do business with us, but for subcontractors to meet prime contractors, and to give them an opportunity to develop those relationships so that there's opportunities for them moving forward.
Great. Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Crocodile.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Mr. Stansky, you just gave me a thought, and I don't know, maybe we're already doing it, but some large corporations that have to do a lot of subcontracting work and secure, and some of those larger agencies, they have those like mixers, so to speak, for lack of a better term. So because less and less is being conducted during the conferences that we used to see all the vendors show up to make those connections with, and the small businesses, with everything now being more virtually oriented, I'm wondering if maybe one of the missing pieces to the recipe is not finding opportunities or creating platforms of engagement to make more of those connections. And that's showing up even like in construction industry. I get people calling me, Michelle, are you aware of, because 3 people retired and that attrition is not being replaced traditionally.
Right.
And, you take that along with the slice of, the piggybacking off of other contracts, which means that's another contract opportunity that is not open because it is that negotiated best rate. So, but I think getting us providing those opportunities, if there's a way that we can support that, whether it's connecting with the chambers associations, for example, and such things as donations to the foundation can also come up too. Just saying, because we always need that support. But I really do think that the Fort Meade Alliance and some of those others that are trying to think tank out the small businesses who are just now relaunching off of the heels of COVID, is getting them on board with us, I think would be huge. But how we do that is hard to actually get them to participate. But I think maybe we could revisit our partnerships with some of our economic friends. Not that we have a whole bunch of time on our hands, but I think we should make time for it.
Well, I think
I'm all about saving money.
Just to share with you, I know that's more of the work that we're doing, working with the Chamber of Commerce. I recently spoke at one of their luncheons, and now I'll be on a panel coming up real soon around advocating, and this could be a piece of, we want to do our part to try to feed back into this community, in the most equitable way as possible. So, I'm being put in some spaces now where we can speak to that sector.
Okay, thank you. We have one more review item, item 8.02, award of contracts. No questions, concerns? Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, some upcoming events. The next board meeting will take place on Wednesday, January 17th, a 6:30 p.m. Meeting here in the boardroom. Our policy committee will be meeting on Tuesday, February the 6th. It will be a 3 p.m. virtual meeting. Budget committee, Tuesday, January, I believe that's 16th. 12 p.m. meeting, a virtual meeting. Equity committee meets Tuesday, February 27th. That'll be a 12 p.m. virtual meeting. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please have a great day. Do I have
Motion
a motion?
to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.